in all the best of greetings and peace and blessings upon everybody. Thank you to everyone who's joined us in this virtual launch, our first Active Citizens Coalition meeting, public meeting, community meeting. My name is Mohammed Ismail. I'm the Secretary General of the Active Citizens Coalition. Imtiaz Sayed, he's our party leader, also chairperson, and Zain Susiwala, he's our deputy chair. You'll find them all on the screens, and I don't know what format you're using, but you'll see everybody. And my other members of the Active Citizens Coalition, guys, if you could put your videos on. So if everybody, just briefly, and if everybody could see who you are, that'll be great. Steffi, Maurice, Nasreen, a whole lot of other of our members are there. Just very, very briefly, I'm not going to be speaking too much. All I'm going to be doing is just introducing and just giving you an extract from our manifesto. Our party leader, Imtiaz Sayed, will then take it from there, and the rest of our mics will be on mute. Just very quickly, the Active Citizens Coalition is what it is. And we talk about active citizenry, and we recently formed to fill the gap that is between the sort of people who are already having the privileges in government and at ward level, at a municipal level, and then you get the marginalized who don't have those kind of privileges and are being forgotten. So Active Citizens Coalition, or the ACC, is filling these gaps, and we want to speak the language of the people, of the minority and the marginalized. So basically, the ACC serves to address the true needs of the people, to encourage active citizenry, to empower and wider participation of the community in all aspects in everyday life. So what you will see effectively is that the ACC is in partnership and has a memorandum of understanding with Etiquette Secure. And Etiquette Secure is one of the community leaders or community-based organizations that has been working alongside every single other community-based organization and the people in every single ward to improve their lives. So if somebody is going to come and ask me, why should we vote for you, or who are you people? What have you guys done? We go back to our formula of Etiquette Secure and say, this is what we've done. We've addressed service delivery issues even before your ward councillor has. This is the work we've done to eliminate crime and grime. We've done GBV programs, all of those kind of things. So this is where we are right now. So if you understand the conceptualization of what we're talking about in terms of ACC, then you will know the direction that we're moving forward. And we want to encourage this kind of community participation and active citizenry through everything that we do. So that's just the sort of brief background of what ACC is all about. And I'm going to now hand you over to our chairperson, Mr. Imtiaz Sayed.
Thanks, Padman. I've been sitting over the past 3 or 4 days trying to understand what I would be saying at this virtual launch. And then I realized I don't actually do that. It's not normal for me to actually prep for these sorts of things. So I didn't. I've just scribbled a few things down in my my book of thoughts over the past 15, 20 minutes. And I think it encompasses all that we've come through and all that we plan to achieve moving forward, obviously with the support of communities in general. Now, I think I'm going to start with asking the question that everyone else is asking, and the question is why? Why are we doing this? What's the need for it? You've got political parties like the ANC, the DA, the EFF, the TA, the MF, and the PA, and Action SA, and everybody is a politician today. I'm going to speak robustly about our history and where we're coming from, and maybe I can bring some clarity to why we are where we are. So pre-1994, there was no such thing as a democracy. We were in apartheid. So by virtue of that, there were no politicians. And being said, the political climate of South Africa is only dating back, starting 1994 and moving up. Before that, we were in apartheid. Based on that, the adults that we see ourselves being today, being in the age range of between 35 and 50 years old, we were unawares of exactly what was going on during the changeover period or the struggle in itself. And by virtue of that, we were left out completely in terms of becoming activists or actually fighting in any type of fight. When it came down to the issues of our community and community-related issues, we all were living in our silos, and maybe some of us, our parents, were involved in the struggle, but in their own way, without giving us an understanding or having any succession plan with regard to taking us into it with them, so to speak. Now, based on that, and just to go back into what I'm trying to get at, is that there wasn't anything as a politician before 1994. So the likes of Nelson Mandela, Oliver Tambo, Walter Sisulu, and all of these great leaders, Ahmed Kathrada and the like, Mac Maraj, and all of them, they were part of a struggle which spoke to activism in its true form, where they fought for the rights of their communities in order for us to be in the space we're in. And when they came into power post-1994, they used political platform to push an agenda of activism. Now that we see that they have aged or are probably deceased by now, we see that politicians are now politicians for the sake of being politicians, for the sake of enriching themselves, and for the sake of fighting and arguing with each other in parliament and doing all of those things without the true interests of communities at hand. So I think that ties into why we are doing what we're doing. We want to bring back activism within communities, and we want to speak for the rights of the people, even though sometimes we go into communities and being oppressed or being suppressed by the rhetoric of the country and the way it is, people have learned to accept the state that they're in and saying, no, but that's how it is. We're going to have to, make do and carry on. And I'm saying, why does it need to be that way? And I can go at length into describing particularly why we believe that we are in a failing situation, and that's merely due to a lack of leadership. So with that, I'm going to start out by saying that around 6 years ago, a few like-minded individuals doing the same thing in their communities realized that they were in the same space and decided to join hands. Whilst going about their activities, they learned from each other, and through best practice realized that in fact, they weren't actually resolving any issues. However, they were merely coordinators of people with issues to people who could resolve the issues, or who had a mandate in order to resolve the issues. So by virtue of that, eThekwini Secure was born, which spoke to a platform by which people could speak. Now, why did we firstly go with eThekwini Secure instead of forming a political party? And I'm going to touch on it, and I'm going to come back to it a little bit later on. Is that when we realized what communities really faced, their priorities back then, and this is 2014, 2015, was their own safety and security, and the fact that our government was failing us in that space in terms of crime and crime-related issues. And they sought to have participation from people that could assist them in their times of need, whether it was dispatching SAPS, getting them services out there, getting an ambulance out. So hence we went down the route of taking care of people's safety and security. And I'll speak to it in hindsight that when we did start out, we didn't realize that it was going to grow to the extent that it did. Wherein effectively, due to our best practice, people were calling us out from all over the eThekwini region to say, please, can you come and assist our community in terms of how it is that you achieve what you achieve and how do you go about doing it. And we went out and we rolled out in a few places like Newlands and Phoenix and Chatsworth and all over the place. So through that and through those platforms, which operates on Facebook, on WhatsApp groups, I think we run about 250 to 300 WhatsApp groups in all different areas. Our Facebook page currently sits on 45,000 subscribers. We've got Instagram and we've got all of these things. But through those platforms of communication, which we see as filters of real issues that communities face, wherein there's different layers of problem solving. So, for example, in a particular area, we now empower people to resolve the issues on their own. And if they can't resolve the issues on their own, we then refer them to community leaders that we've now equipped to actually understand the problem and understand the solutions, and have given them the tools in order to resolve those issues, whether it's service delivery, a pipe leak, or whether it's a policing related matter, or whatever the cause might be, we feel that we've now learned across the way and developed solutions for people's problems. However, when we speak about the bigger things which comes up, and if you guys notice, I'm not very active on Facebook and Instagram, and even on our WhatsApp groups, I don't sit there. And I firmly believe that it is a filter for the real issues. And if the real issues do come up, then obviously it's escalated to the level where I need to intervene and then get involved in what we need to assist with. Now, the background by which we come from is a business-related one, and therefore we run everything we do, even if it's voluntary, as though it is a business. And sorry, I'm not used to looking into a camera and speaking, so I will wander off my head a little bit here and there. So based on that, we firmly believe that governments in general cannot be run as political parties or affiliated to a particular political alignment. Every single government department should be run as though it's a business. In effect, they all are state-owned enterprises. We as the community pay for the services, and to a certain degree, we expect some oversight. And those oversight committees come in the form of ratepayers associations, civic bodies that hold municipalities accountable. And the reason I say this, you see more effective policing in areas wherein we are, due to the fact that these formations are there and are holding SAPS, Metro Police, municipal departments, security services, and all of them accountable for the lack of service delivery, if it ever is there. And in order for that to be effective, you need to have active citizenry, and that's the only way to go from our perspective. When it comes down to the issue of us being a particular racial political party, that's absolutely incorrect. We represent all that care to join us, all the active citizens, whether you're from the informal settlement, whether you're black, green, colored, white, Indian, whatever it is. We need you to be a part of us. And the reason for that is that if you have an interest in your community, and if you are an active citizen, we see that when you are in that space and you are leading in your community, you ultimately end up taking the plight of your people to the doors of a politician, which ends up being shut because there's no political will behind that door. And that speaks to why we are at this juncture right now. Everything that we face as community, the ultimate change in it, in terms of policy, in terms of action, in terms of response, it ultimately lies behind a politician giving a direction to a particular SOE in order for them to do their job. So why do we see service delivery lacking so much? It's because of a lack of political will and leadership. It's ultimately the same in any business. If you have a manager who's derelict in his duties, his staff at the end of the day would also be derelict in their duties. So that oversight isn't there. And we are now understanding those spaces and understanding and realizing that something needs to be done. And we need to start holding councillors, leaders in municipalities accountable. Now, people have asked, why didn't you all run for the 2019 election? The discussion did happen around about 2018 with the leadership of the eThekwini Secure and the eThekwini outreach platforms, wherein at the time we conceptualized the name Active Citizens Coalition. We drew the correlation between everything we do in service and in service to the community to the ultimate fight, which gives us a leg to stand on when it comes down to political will. That we didn't want to go with the 2019 national elections because that's a top-down approach. We firmly believe that everything we do speaks to creating leaders within community, creating activism within community, and based on that, we need to start from the ground up. Yes, it definitely is a long process. Yes, it definitely speaks to a lot more work, but it is in that hard work that we now will be able to achieve what we plan to achieve moving forward. And the other reasoning behind it is if we started a party which spoke to a national footprint, it then became restricted in terms of the protocols and what happens within different municipalities. And it wouldn't directly address the issues that those municipalities or those leaders within those municipalities face. And we see that amongst a lot of other smaller parties wherein there might be 1 or 2 seats that they might have within a municipality. However, you'd see that they are really ineffective in what they're trying to achieve, because they have no bigger framework or no bigger grouping of thinkers to assist them in direction or assist them in their plight, or have an understanding of what community actually wants. So they basically take up a seat for the purposes of taking up the seat and don't really represent communities by far and at large. So with that being said, and moving very quickly forward, is that I'm going to speak very quickly with regard to the issue of councillors. We firmly believe that the policies by which councillors are employed, we need to be very clear in this, by the parties they represent, is in fact flawed. In order for you to become a councillor, we firmly believe that you should come from a background of activism wherein you are in tune with the community you will represent, and you use the party as the political backbone to bolster you up in order for you to have a voice for your community. That's basically our plan and our strategy. We don't plan to sit here as the leaders or presidents or deputy chairperson or secretaries of any political party to speak to bolstering up someone that has no space in their community or no interaction with their community. We actually speak to taking activists from their community and giving them a political backbone within municipalities so that they can voice what their community really needs in terms of all the different things that affect them. So I think I've clarified that particular issue. What is our strategy? We plan to launch, I think it's on the 5th, that we plan to launch the eThekwini Joint Ratepayers Association. We as eThekwini Secure, eThekwini Service Delivery, and eThekwini Outreach have been called to many ratepayers meetings to assist in various issues wherein the community at large didn't have any understanding of what direction to take. And it speaks to land invasion, it speaks to open spaces being turned into residential properties where they want to build gap low-cost housing with flats in there within a middle-income residential area, which was originally zoned for an educational area, and those kinds of things. And when we go into those communities, we see that there's a great gap between an understanding of what ratepayers associations need to achieve and how they need to act in terms of addressing the issues of their community, and now trying to assist them in giving them the tools by which they would use to assist their communities by far. So under any circumstances, it doesn't speak to us forming the ratepayers associations ourselves. However, in areas that don't have ratepayers association or civic bodies that speaks to employment, empowerment, and all of those things, which we also plan to do, is to give them direction as to how these things are formed, what are the protocols observed, and what it is the mandate is of these different organizations, and how as a collective in maybe bi-monthly meetings or monthly meetings between all the different executive committees of these ratepayers associations, and understanding whether all of these areas have basically the same issues, tabling them with council to say what are the solutions, and then obviously not just tabling issues, but ultimately coming up with effective solutions for these things. Now, why do we speak to ratepayers associations so much? Is that we need to understand in different wards, we've got 580 informal settlements within the eThekwini municipality, and not to be biased or discriminate against those that don't pay rates. But we firmly believe that those rate-paying citizens need to have their voices heard in terms of what they believe should be delivered in terms of service delivery, because ultimately they are paying their service to basically a state-owned enterprise, which should be running as though it's a business and deliver the services that it promises to the people. Now, the reason we separating the two is because in the informal sector, the issues that they face, and we have leadership in there that's assisting us with the program that we want to run within those areas to address the issues of the informal areas, to address their poverty, to address the issues of empowerment. And that's a whole different discussion, which I'm not going to bring into this particular meeting. However, it is all encompassing. It does include everybody, but we're separating the two. So I'm not going to go very much further into the ratepayers associations and why we're forming them, but we also have the informal sector and their associations that we're now forming in terms of different activities and all of those things. Now, when we speak to candidacy, we want candidates that are already active in their communities, that represent their communities irrespective. They have a voice, they understand what their communities need, and they are fighting for their communities with all their might. However, they are getting stopped at doors when it comes down to entering council and getting their voices heard. We want to take them there. That's the basis of which we've launched this particular program. And ultimately, we do plan on running for national elections in the next election that comes up, and basically starting out within eThekwini to launch ourselves within the municipality to get in on certain wards. And I think our main focus is to try and get PR at least in every single ward across the municipality, so that our collective voice in terms of the priorities of our citizens can be heard. So I'm going to now go on to what is the campaign? What are we speaking to? We ultimately don't have a campaign, because campaigning for us is basically a lie. We firmly believe that you shouldn't campaign if you've always been doing the work. And we have always been doing the work in terms of our different platforms that we run and how we approach community-driven or community problems, and how we drive those problems to solutions. So we firmly believe that we've been doing the work, and we are in certain instances the go-to for certain things when it comes down to community-related issues. We also believe that councillors that come into council for the first time, and it takes them at least 2 or 3 years to actually tread lightly in those waters, seek to be liked by their communities, and then come out trying to assist. But they currently deal with potholes and everyday issues, which doesn't really speak to what we believe a councillor should be doing. So our plan is to actually form street committees within each and every area within a ward that speaks to 2 members of the street. One speaks to crime and one speaks to grime. When it comes down to the issues that we face, then we collectively discuss the issues that they have and then escalate those issues on behalf of those communities in a proper networked, sustainable system. So those issues then would generally get dealt with by the people themselves, and that's ultimately correct. But what we find ourselves now seeing is that councillors of our areas, they have 2 things to say. One is, I'm on the ground and I am tending to a water leak within the Overport area or any area for that matter, and they would take pictures and put it up on social media and do all of those things. However, I'm not too sure whether the councillors are in fact plumbers and whether in fact they are assisting us, because it is municipality that's there currently and is just confirming that they are there doing their job. So for that, we thank you for informing us that municipality is doing their job. But then we find a rhetoric as well, that when you ask councillors what is being done about ward development, they tell you that it's an ANC-run ward, or it's a DA councillor, or whatever their arguments are, that it is what it is and you're just going to have to accept it. We don't believe that. We believe that councillors needed to step up their game and speak to ward development in its true form. So for example, in a particular area, if we have, and if you assess it properly, in the past year, we've had in extent of 336 or 400, I'm not too sure exactly what the number might be, I'm just giving you a hypothetical example, that if they had so many leaks of water infrastructure being on the main line within a particular area, then would it not be fair for the councillor to start developing a renew program in terms of when was the last time that the infrastructure was replaced? Is it ailing? What would be the budget for them to replace that? And then table it at the annual meeting, the budget hearing, to say that in a particular ward, the infrastructure is ailing, we need to replace it. When it comes down to the issues of parks and gardens, we see the norm is becoming that communities are now taking over those parks and now starting to address their concerns and trying to get those parks up and running themselves. Why is it like that? What is happening? Why are we lacking in service delivery in terms of all of these different things? So trying to get an understanding of where we are in terms of service delivery, I think that is more importantly the councillor's job, and not taking care of the day-to-day issues which should be taken care of autonomously, and there should be committees in place led by community leaders to address the everyday issues, and it should become a sustainable plan. This is like, currently we're living in a space where municipality deals with issues as though they're putting band-aids on every single cut that comes up, instead of addressing the problem as to why we keep on falling or we keep on ailing. So that's where we're coming from with regard to candidacy. We want active citizens. We fully understand that different parties have different ways by which they employ councillors. We firmly believe that councillors that are brought in should be well versed already in their community and already have rapport in terms of service delivery and those kind of things. And then we should be giving them political platform. And obviously they would be getting paid by council in order to represent you, which allows them to sustainably, instead of their day-to-day job, in effect, speak to their true value of why they are activists in the first place. So I think that speaks to the campaign. We just want to do the work. Let's get everyone on board. Let's get the work done, and we go from there. When we're speaking to empowerment and social development in its true form, we see now of late that there's a rhetoric of the fourth industrial revolution, which speaks to a technological one. We firmly believe that we need to start maybe 2 industrial revolutions before and start training our people in terms of basic skills, in terms of, we've got the informal areas which are now getting electrified, they're getting running water and those kinds of things. We need to start educating in terms of plumbing, electrical, basic skills that currently we as community don't have. I'm going to touch very briefly into the issue of our youth, and I've spoke in the beginning about us being a lost generation and the struggle that come to the fore without us being involved in it. And now we find ourselves in a space where we lack understanding of what we need to do, and we're learning every day in order to grow in the space. I'm saying our youth need to be involved. Our youth are sitting at home in their silos on their cell phones and doing whatever it is that we feel they're safe to do. We as leaders in community need to bring out our youth, have them join in youth platforms so that they can understand the plight of our country, the plight of our community, the plight of our people, so that we would then not be speaking about this later, and we would in fact have a succession plan and create activism within our youth moving forward. I think that should cover exactly why we are who we are and what we are doing within community. We want to activate and mobilize every single area within eThekwini. We want to do roadshows. We want to come out on streets. We want to be there, and we want to give an understanding and understand the issues of communities. And we want every single individual that's currently listening to us right now to start sending us names of people that are currently working in the community, so that we can call up a conference and speak to everyone about joining hands in this coalition, so that we can move our communities forward, whether we marginalize, whether we're the majority, whatever it is. If we feel that the current situation we're in is inadequate, then we need to bring change. And the year for change is 2021 with our eThekwini municipal elections. So, Chair of the meeting, I thank you. I think that's it from my side. And then you can go from there. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. You, the chair of the meeting. Guys, you heard what Imtiaz had said, and it's a very, very important sort of aspect in terms of how we want to take communities forward. We have been doing the work, and we would want people to understand the concept and theme of active citizenry. We are here. So if anybody wants to interact, I think if there's any questions for Imtiaz, please pose your questions. Any questions? Did everybody get the gist of where we are and what we want to do and how we're moving forward? Any questions? No questions? Because I think everybody's satisfied with that explanation in terms of what we're doing. So just a reminder also, we're going to be doing the sort of membership drive. I've got membership forms that's available. The concept is that get 10 family members to sign up and get each of those to sign up another 10. Membership is free, pretty straightforward. The only thing about the thing about the membership forms is that we want to keep a database of people, so we can always interact via email or SMS or WhatsApp platforms. We've got a WhatsApp group, so I think everybody on here we'll give you that link to the WhatsApp group. It's going to be it's a public WhatsApp group for ACC where we can discuss matters and then update everybody about what's going on and the direction in which we want to do things. So in the next few days, you're going to see more and more literature coming out and more advertising that's going to be happening around the Active Citizens Coalition. So welcome to the ACC family, everybody. I think there's something in the chat here, Steffi. I don't see anything. Somebody said, please excuse me to everybody. Okay, there's nothing more there. Any questions, people? Or can we move forward and conclude the meeting? MTS, anything you need to add in there? Steffi, Zain, any ACC members, any comments?
I think, Pat,
So,
if we can get just some feedback as to the feel of the people in this meeting, as to whether we're going in the right direction, because as much as we might be speaking of what we believe or what we think, we also must take constructive criticism in the direction we're going. And I think the people that are on here are leaders in their own right, and we should take inputs from them as to what they believe we should be doing and whether in fact we are going in the right direction with regard to this election. Because as much as we have discussed it for many hours and days, so to speak, and we do feel that it is the correct way to approach these sorts of things, we should take inputs from everyone that's on this panel as to how they feel. Because what I noticed is that when we do go for certain meetings, and everything that's said in the meeting would be in silence, and then in the corridors we see that there is a certain level of negativity, where in fact I firmly believe that if there is negativity, it should be brought to our attention so that we can self-correct and then go down the path by which those leaders are now telling us in no uncertain terms that maybe you should do this or that. So I think maybe if we can allow everyone to give their opinion of what they think in terms of us launching this party.
please go ahead.
There's a question from Shabnam in the chats.
Yeah, so it's
Is
somewhere
ACC
about
forming a constructive relationship with shack dwellers movements? Abashlile based in Jondolo.
Absolutely. Pat, I did have a very brief discussion with Spoo, and this was when there were land invasion threats in the Cato Crest area as well as the Clare Estate area, wherein we initiated meetings with council and the communities at large. And we firmly believe in the plight of the informal sector. And we welcome Lindiwe Sisulu's, the minister's move to actually start issuing land instead of housing, because that gives a sense of ownership to people. And our people are very industrialist. I mean, you know, they're innovative and they can, you know, bring change and build things and make things. However, when it comes down to the informal areas, we see that due to the fact that they don't have ownership of the land, there's great insecurity into what they exactly put up there. And we very strongly believe that land should be given to the people. Urban land is in great demand. We firmly believe that informal or formal housing that's now been created in areas like Konubia and all of that, we need to understand the challenges of the people moving from the shacks into those areas. The basic thing that we get from them all the time is that the transport costs from where they're staying in comparison to where they work is very costly and they can't afford it. So therefore they live in the shacks. So we want to move towards saying that free transport should be provided for those people to and from those areas to allow that. And we as citizens or ratepayers should be very cognizant of the fact of how we pay our staff that work for us in our properties or in our buildings. In terms of that, we are saying that if you are paying someone a minimum wage, how do you expect them or where do you expect them to live except in an informal area within your area? So yes, absolutely. You know, we're willing to partner and speak to any organization wherein our goals are the same. It's for the empowerment of community, as long as we don't cross over and have a difference of opinion in terms of the protocols observed and what they plan to do. Thanks.
Imtiaz, it's not over and above what you're saying. A party is not just a relationship with one particular organization like Abashlale. It goes greater and deeper into communities itself. Like, for example, the point that you brought up when it comes to people who are working far away. What happens with those children that need caretaking or to be taken care of? So one of the things that we're thinking of is why shouldn't we engage with people who would want to put up creches in the informal settlements where children can have a safe haven when their parents go out to work, instead of the children running around on the streets or don't have opportunities for schooling, and try and get a small little education concept going there. That's one thing. And then looking at the healthcare, maybe try and get some makeshift clinics outside. So it's just in the informal settlements. So those are just basic ideas that we were looking at. And also those who are studying, those who go to school, they might be in university. Why not? Why can't we get these major phone companies or cell phone companies to come and put in free Wi-Fi? And we need to motivate for these things, because all they're doing, the blue chip companies are taking and taking and taking and not giving back to the communities. So hopefully, Shibnam, that answers some of your questions over there.
I think, Bets, just to touch very quickly onto something that I brought up in a meeting yesterday, was that, you know, when we look at councillors, we look at them as leaders in our community originally. And as we get to know them better, we see, and not to put anyone down, I mean, you get some very good councillors, and then you get some of them that are still learning the ropes and don't understand exactly what they need to do in terms of delivering the services to the community. But when it comes down to the issue of healthcare, I mean, who speaks to those elderly people that are bedridden at home? Is it not the duty and obligation of a councillor to identify those people within those areas to say, we will now engage with the Department of Health of eThekwini to assist those people in their homes in terms of mobile clinics or whatever it is that might be the situation. In terms of pensions, in terms of all of these things that our communities face, in terms of child grants, in terms of all of that, we firmly believe that the councillors need to get involved and start speaking on behalf of their people, and not just speak to service delivery in its elastoplast kind of form that we see it at the moment. There's a much bigger picture, there's a much greater picture. And I'm going to speak very quickly into empowerment and cooperatives, which I had sent an email to the mayor's office to say that in informal areas, we find that there are many people without jobs. And in order to empower them, we want to move to say that if there's any contracts in terms of street sweeping, we see contractors that work in these different areas that aren't really from the areas, and they're basically coming from tender entrepreneurs that have some inroads within municipality. And corruption is another discussion for a different day that needs to be tackled and spoken about robustly as well. But I'm saying that we need to start empowering our people, form them into cooperatives, give them the financial tools or the financial acumen tools to start running their own businesses and dealing with the issues that they need to deal with within those poverty-stricken communities as well. So I'm saying there are many opportunities, and those opportunities need to be given to the people that need it the most. And it shouldn't just be for enriching one or two individuals that sit at the top and have a few friends in a few places. So I'm saying those are things that we need to address, and community initiatives need to be community driven, and they need to be given to the community for the empowerment and upliftment of that community that they are from.
Thank you, Imtiaz, for that. And just to add to that again, people, is one of the things we talk about ward-based management, and we talk about building the economy in wards from grassroots level up. So we want to try and, not we want to try, we are going to do a sort of a concept where people need to support people within their wards. So if you know there's a plumber living next door to you, or if you know that obviously no one may come and sort this out for free, there has to be some kind of economy being generated into the community, and we need to reinvest our own money into our own wards and build people up who might have been struggling with their jobs. You know, there's artisans, there's welders, there's everybody doing those kind of things. So even in the informal settlements, we'll find these very same people, and we'll then encourage the building of the economies from in wards from grassroots level up, and strengthening the wards with very, very simple principles and concepts. Well, I see somebody's just messaged to say 7 minutes till Ramaphosa's address. I don't know if you want to round off, Mr. Party Leader. Any questions? Anybody needs anything to say? Please, you're welcome to interact. My email address is moeissy, moeissy @gmail.com, activecitizenscoalition@gmail.com. Please drop us emails, interact with us, join our campaigns, and let's take it from there.
Okay. Bets, I see Shabnam's here and Omi, I see Kim, I see quite a few other people. Do they have any comments for us, any direction so that we can move ahead with this?
I think except from what came from Shabnam, there's no other input. And silence means that, Kim, you want to say something? You're waving? Your microphone's off.
I just wanted to say thank you for taking this step. I think it's long overdue and the people are waiting for a movement like this. So I'm very glad and thankful to be part of the team and willing to assist in any way that I can. So thank you.
Thanks so much for that, Kim.
Omi, your mic is offline there. Steffi, if you want to unmute Omi first.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Congratulations on this initiative. I think it has been a long drive to get to this point. I think we have all given politicians a chance to represent us, and they have all failed us. So basically, I see this organization going to augur well for the future. I just want to get your thoughts on the business forum about going around and claiming 30% of businesses. What is your thoughts on that?
Okay, so Omi, I think I'm going to touch on this one very quickly and in no uncertain terms. Our government has become complacent in their duties or derelict in their duties in terms of addressing this issue firmly. All this really is extortion, right? We fully understand the plight of the people, but this is not being done by poverty-stricken people. This is being done by a grouping of individuals that want to demand from those that are actively building infrastructure and doing things for the benefit of everyone, creating jobs and doing all of those things. And I think there needs to be a clear understanding as to what the process is. Now, I have through the different platforms, and as you know, I sit on a different platform as well, which I can't mention here because that one's supposed to be or is apolitical. But we have brought up this issue and we've said that there needs to be a national instruction in terms of what needs to be done when these sorts of things happen, because there is no protection from the construction industry. And we see that it's moving over into the security industry as well, wherein there's demands that, you know, certain businesses pay 30% to a particular grouping of people that demand that they get an involvement in contracts. We are saying that if you are rightfully employed, or if you have a particular interest, or you can provide a particular service to that contractor or developer for that matter, then so be it. But let's table it in its proper way, and let's do it for the purposes of empowerment of the community that's there. So we see that they come around and they speak to these contractors saying that you need to employ from within the community, which in fact those contractors do abide by, which I have been to quite a few of them to try and intervene and speak to that. And now we see of late that there's a grouping of people that are coming in and taking over abandoned buildings and putting in tenants in those buildings, which doesn't go well with us living in the space and trying to develop or trying to build economies around areas that we live in. So yes, we're totally against it. And there is something being done on different platforms regarding it for pushing to get a national instruction as to how to deal with this particular issue. I'd like to also, whilst you're on the topic, and something that I've forgotten to speak about, is that the issue of xenophobia and foreigners. When it comes down to understanding how an economy runs, right? An economy is basically the speed by which money changes hands within a country. That's really all it is, So if money is being changed hands within a particular country, and it continually does that, it's how our economy prospers. But when we have foreigners that come into our country, work in our country, and thereafter move those funds across our borders, then in fact, we're slowing down our own economy, because the person that was supposed to have been building a house here is now building a house in a foreign country with the funds that has been brought about by us. So there's a break in that chain. So we're saying that we don't have issues with foreigners or foreign businesses in our country, but we have an issue where foreigners in general spend majority of their money across our borders and not in our country. And that's something that we very vociferous about, in saying that we want to bring change to that, and we want to have a clear understanding that if you're a foreigner in our country, if you're here to stay, if you're here to develop, if you're here to build bridges and build the economy, then we welcome you. But if you're here to basically rape our country of its riches and leave, then we have a problem with that. And this also speaks to our minds. Currently in South Africa, we have a shortage of steel. For the life of me, I've had a discussion with a businessman today wherein I'm actually a contractor. And we're basically trying to put up a new roof in a building that had been burnt down. And we cannot get any roof sheeting that we need. Why? Because there's shortage of steel. However, we mine ore in our country. That ore is taken out of our country, processed elsewhere, and sold back to us. Why is it that we cannot industrialize to a level where we start processing our own raw materials, our own resources, and keep it in our country and become, in fact, wholesalers to other countries in itself? So industrialization on a different scale, that's something that we're also looking at. I think that answers you there, Omi.
Any input from anyone else? Anything else? Any input? Any questions? I told you guys again, the email address is activecitizenscoalition@gmail.com, or you could liaise with me directly, moeissy, moeissy@gmail.com. So we're ready to rock and roll and get this party launched. Well, we are launched, but just to get things going even stronger than what we have in the past. So welcome everybody onto the ACC family. If you're joining us as official members or unofficial members, and let's do the work together and win some awards, if not all awards, in next year's 2021 local government elections. And also just one thing, sorry, Mr. Chair, you would see that we themed 2021 as the year of the activist. So I'll put out those swatches again, the year of the activist 2021, and you know exactly why we're saying that. Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. But I think also it's important, just to go back to Omi's question, we do have plans within the first week of 2021 to launch the South African Indian Business Forum. Let me tell you why we're doing that. It's because I think there is one that's already called the South African Colored Business Forum that now speaks to unifying Indian businesses. And obviously we'll, at that juncture, partner with the South African Colored Business Forum to speak as a collective in terms of all of these forums and how do we move forward as a middle tier or middle space business sector. So that's something that we need to touch on. Also, with regard to the issue of candidacy, we don't plan on just picking or handpicking candidates from communities. We want everyone to give us names of all the candidates that they believe would be in a particular ward. We will be calling community meetings in the community halls, and we will be joining all of these activists in understanding that we will take you to community. We'll let the community decide who they want as a candidate, and that's part of our campaign moving forward. Thanks, Pat. I think you're going to close this meeting now. So I'd like to thank everyone that attended, and let us move forward. If there's any constructive criticism, you guys have my number. Give me a call, give me some suggestions, tell us what to do, because this is new space that we're treading in. We don't know everything, and we're fully aware of that, and we're wanting to learn every single day. So thank you very much for the opportunity, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Party Leader. Very informative, as usual. And you guys know what I have to put up with when my party leader speaks. Eh? Just thank you, everybody, for joining. You've taken out the time. I think that the president is on TV now. I'm just checking that he is on TV. You guys have our numbers. At any time, please, we're available. We're there to talk. We're there to help. And you know, we've got our platforms, secure outreach, CPF, and everything else that's there. We can do what we're supposed to do. We are doing what we are supposed to do for everybody. Thank you. Be safe. Also practice social responsibility. COVID is here. The second wave is going to hit us hard. So please just be safe. Don't get the infection. I bid you all Godspeed. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum and good night.
Good night.